Welcome to Shapers of the Snow, a show dedicated to the small independent builders handcrafting skis and snowboards around the world. We sit down with the shapers to hear how they got started, the art behind their craft, the real challenges they face, and what continues to fuel their passion for creating shapes for the snow. Grab a beer or a coffee, and let's get on with the show. Hello everyone, welcome to Shapers of the Snow. Today we have Alex from
Crash Snowboards.
And how you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thanks a bunch for having me on. How about you? How are you doing?
I'm doing good, and thanks for coming on.
Heck yeah.
To start with, background on how you got into snowboarding and what eventually led you to want to make your own snowboards.
Yeah, for sure. I started snowboarding older than a lot of people in high school when I was 15 or 16. And I grew up in New Mexico, in Los Alamos, which a lot of people know now from Oppenheimer. Yeah, my friend got me into it. We didn't have like the money for lift tickets and stuff, so it's almost how everybody starts out. Like you don't have enough the money to pay for lift tickets, and then you end up hiking and boot packing and earning your turns. And in the beginning, that really sucked for me, but like overall, I think it like helped build a sense of respect. I think for earning the fun, and then snowboard making specifically. After I got a bit better at snowboarding, I started thinking about how cool different shapes, different tail and nose shapes would be. Just like I think a lot of other people have similar thoughts, and I took a jigsaw to the tail of one of my twin boards, and made it, a swallowtail. I feel like that's like a coming of age thing that a lot of snowboarders do, and then you feel it out, and either you cut too much out, and you're getting bogged down, or otherwise sometimes it's a neat ride, and you're like, man, like this is kind of cool. Like I wonder how far I could take it. Kind of how I started was, I cut the tails of a couple boards and wanted to see why I stopped there.
Yeah, so you just started experimenting with the board you had and just altering it. And then the curiosity kind of took over. You wanted to keep going.
Yeah, started looking more into how boards are pressed and stuff, and I ended up actually moving to Denver to try and get some more space so that I could try building my own press. And my first press was, I kind of based it on skateboard deck presses. The way decks are pressed, you just basically get like a 2x8 piece of wood, and you can, if you cut a profile of a deck out and of a bunch of those, and you put them side by side, and then you just toss that into like a 24-ton hydraulic press that you can get from like Harbor Freight. You can press your own skateboards. And I was like, okay, so if I could press skateboards like that, snowboards don't need that much more pressure. So maybe I can get away with pressing snowboards too like this. And yeah, spoiler alert, it did not work out that way, but when I look back on it, like I kind of laugh at how simple I thought it was, but I really like how I still tried. I don't know, even though knowing how much I know now, it's like, dude, what were you doing, man? Like,
Trial and error. That's the only way to start.
yeah, yeah.
I've seen people attempt that before, and most of the results were it was very uneven press. So you had like low spots, high spots, spots where like the fiberglass didn't compress at all were over compressed. So you had like a lot of epoxy in some places and none in other. Is that what you had?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it didn't help that when I started, I wasn't using the right epoxies. Kind of just in the dark, and I was just using whatever I could find. I think I was using a like an auto marine epoxy when I started out, because I was like, if this works for boats, it should work for snowboards. It's just like I don't like it was a crazy time. But yeah, like I think I pressed two snowboards with that press I made myself, and both of them had pools of epoxy in the contact points in the middle of the board because I was getting good pressure on the ends, but like you're saying, like the middle, and like you're saying, it's really hard to get even pressure at all just because for me, I was using two 12-ton presses side by side, and then I had my 2x8 mold in the middle, like between them. There's no, I mean, I'm sure you can, like, I didn't have gauges on my hydraulic presses, so it was like they're bottle jacks on them, so I was just winging it. I was like, oh, that feels good on that side, and that feels good on that side, and they were rideable. That's what really impressed me was that like even though my process was so like poor and so bad, like they still rode. They just didn't last. Like it was still fun to ride them, but they didn't. They delammed really quick, which was why I eventually switched to. But I eventually met. Basically, I was looking for cores in the Denver area, and I eventually met two other shapers, Corey from Affinity Snowboards and Chris Peters from Adamant Skis, and they kind of looked at what I had going, and they were like, they just saw the press because I was really proud of that press at that time, and they took a look at the press and they were like, "Dude, what are you doing?" They were like, "You should just save your time and like a little bit of your money and effort and just message us every once in a while if you have like enough stuff to press a board." And then that kind of helped me take off in like a different way and grow.
Okay, and that they kind of help you get Crash started, or is that why you were starting to press the boards? You wanted to start your own company?
Yeah, yeah. So I started Crash just hand pressing all my own stuff, making absolutely dog shit boards, and I wasn't selling to anybody. And I didn't plan to. I was just having homies ride them, and just seeing how far I could take it. It wasn't. I didn't have high expectations at all. I was like, I don't even know what I don't know. Basically, is how I felt. And then yeah, once I found them, and they, we kind of established like a pretty good relationship, and they started teaching me everything they knew. That's really that's the only reason that I have the skills and the knowledge that I have now to like take Crash to like a pretty like we do things very similar to a lot of other brands now. Like there's this guy on Instagram, Jay Stone, Justin Stone. He's a research engineer for K2, and he posts a lot of their process, which is kind of crazy because no other company, I guess Burton kind of does, but no other big company posts a lot of that process. And a lot of the time, like I'll see what he's up to, and we actually do things like pretty similar to K2, which is kind of cool. It's also like they have a lot more firepower, so they can. But it's cool that at least in terms of prototyping, we do things similar.
You do like deflection test and weight test stuff like that.
No, so that's the winner. They definitely outclass us on that stuff. We don't have any kind of like machine testing like that. I kind of more meant they have like the way they do cassettes and stuff to hold all the layers of the board while you're pressing it. We kind of do similar stuff to them in that sense. And that's like what a lot of companies do, and what they do for their large like scale production is they take like a piece of sheet of aluminum like 16 inches wide and by like let's say 84 inches, like a little bit bigger than a snowboard. You have it like quarter inch thick, and you straight up, or maybe yeah, like maybe quarter inch or eighth inch, anywhere in between, or yeah, anywhere in between. And then you straight up just mill a whole snowboard shape out of the bottom half of that cassette, so that every layer, the base sits in perfect. The fiberglass can go over. The corset's perfect, and that way you don't have any problems with anything slipping while you're pressing. And that was like a big thing for me is once I made my own cassette. We do it different than that because like you can tell that way it only works for one shape. So they can do that because they can buy like a bunch of aluminum sheets and just mill out a bunch of shapes. Like that way's the best for mass manufacturing for sure, just because you're using that piece of aluminum, like 1,000 or more times. But when you're a little guy, you want to be flexible. So we do things a little different in that sense. But before you use a cassette when you're pressing snowboards, you often just have 2 sheets of aluminum and you're taping stuff down and you're just hoping nothing moves. Like, and that's how I was doing it for a while. And it works. It just every once in a while something slips and then that board's toast and you're just bummed because that's all that material going to waste and all those hours. So
Yeah, been there. It's never fun when you go cut out or take out the press. You're like, oh no.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, man.
Like I thought it was locked in, but it was not.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just like it's like a sinking feeling in your stomach and you're just so bummed. Like dang, I spent especially when I was starting out, I was spending like 20 hours aboard pretty much. And it's like, damn. But you live and you learn.
Kind of the process of learning to make skis and snowboards is you're gonna mess some up.
Yeah. Gonna mess a lot up. Chris and Corey would always tell me, like, to make a successful snowboard company, you need to be ready to waste like a bunch of money up front learning everything. And then there's always the other joke that gets spread around a couple industries, but it's like, what's the easiest way to make $1 million snowboard company? It's like start with 2 million. It's like, oh man.
Now, are you working at their shop?
Yeah, so Corey's moved to his own shop now. I think he's working on some new stuff now. And so it's been me and Chris at a shop now. We're in Englewood, so a little bit south of Denver, but we'll probably be moving shop soon, like in September, to another spot, hopefully. But yeah, it's just us two. Chris makes skis and I make boards, and we kind of just share the space. And like I'm so grateful to share a space with him just because he's like a low-key genius. Like he knows you give him a problem and he can help you. He can come up with a couple different ways to help you, and it's been dope just like learning with him and working with him.
Yeah, they sound like good mentors.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. It's like when I was starting out, I was like super grateful to Powder Jets for doing those classes because almost nobody else offers anything like that. And Powder Jets up in Vermont actually does presses boards in a kind of cool way. It's pretty old school. He has no sidewalls, no top sheet, and it's just wood, like the core, and a base. The base still has metal edges. I'm not totally sure if there's fiberglass or not in between, but when I was starting out, that was like a really good way for me to like understand what was going on because it helps you understand like the evolution of the snowboard and like why we do things the way we do now. That's like knowledge, like, I don't know. You can't really pay for that. I mean, I was lucky enough to be able to, but like, thank God for Powder Jets being the homie and offering those classes. But regional shapers are dropping like flies, in my opinion. And I feel like a lot of that knowledge gets lost. Yeah, hard to say.
It goes up and down with how many people are doing it and how many aren't. It seems like influxes, then dips, then more people
Yeah.
again. Yeah, it's hard to say where we are right now.
Yeah.
What do you guys got for machines in the shop? Because I noticed like your graphics are pretty detailed, and you got base graphics too. Do you guys do dye sublimation, or how are you getting the graphics on?
Yeah, yeah. So Corey actually has one of Lindsay's old presses or a press he bought from Lindsay, sorry. And that's snowboardmaterials.com. That's the guy who ran that. So he used to make presses that anyone could buy. There's the option of like single cavity, dual cavity, or you could have press and a sub press above it. and Corey had one of those. So we were doing our own sublimation for top sheets and bases. Corey's since moved out, so we don't have Chris goes over and uses his stuff, but I'm trying to look for like alternative ways for right now. Yeah.
Graphics and like all the art on your boards are very like retro 90s vibe to them. Kind of like that
Yeah.
gritty street cartoons.
Yeah.
Is that like a decision you wanted to go with when you started Crash? Is do you want to bring it back to that kind of 90s punk street style?
Yeah, for sure. Like when I was growing up, World Industries was the shit. Like World Industries had the coolest graphics. It was awesome. And I really want to bring that kind of back to snowboarding in any way that I can. Yeah, it's just tough. I mean, there's just so many, like I just see so many like bad graphics these days, and it's like snowboards used to be like every snowboard you would hang up would be like cool enough to hang up on your wall. And like nowadays it's like we just get a lot of weird fancy light top sheets and like I don't know. I want to bring back more of that kind of vibe, and it's tough too just because I think it's tough deciding how you're going to pay your artists and designers, and I think a lot of big companies kind of don't really do that. Like they don't pick out designers with I don't want to say that. That's not right, but I just think that there's not as much money for good graphics as there is the rest of the process for the big companies. For me, the other part is that like for my art, I try to hire local artists or people I know. It's really important to me that we try to foster a local scene in terms of like where our money's going as well. Core used to be like, I think you'll find more and more that like the most core people aren't necessarily, or the most people that are acting core aren't necessarily supporting the community around them, whether that's like, buying more boards made in China. And there's nothing wrong with that if you need a low cost ride, like I will never rag on somebody for having a lower budget. But I think a lot of snowboarders, it's such a big part of their lives that you get to a point where you're making sure you have enough money to get whatever you want, whether that's like, Union Ultras or like, a new $600 board. And I want to try to push the importance of trying to support, like keeping your money local. It's hard, like in like this current like world where like it's really tough to do all the stuff. Like in the 90s, it was like everyone was throwing jams and stuff. And it's like, it's really tough to get that kind of budget these days. And I mean, that's kind of part of the reason everyone went out of business, right? So you don't want to follow their footsteps, but like for me, I'm focused on supporting local jams and things like that over necessarily making boards to sell. I'd rather be giving boards to a jam than for free, like than selling those boards, just because like I'm trying to it should be more about investing in the sport to me than trying to profit off it. I don't want to get too like in the bushes on this. I think there's like a lot of people that want to start snow brands. Off the top of my head, I can name 5 snowboard brands. I'm not going to, but I can name 5 snowboard brands that all use the same factory. Stuff like that irks me because it's like, what are you adding to the sport, to the industry? Like, what value are you providing? You're repackaging product that 5 other people are selling, repackaged of versions of it as well. And to me, it's like, I really wish we could, as a society, not look at these sports as a means of entrepreneurship and like money grabs. And we could actually like, I want to make snowboards. Okay. Don't look for a factory. How about you learn to make snowboard? It's like I hate putting it like that, but to me, it's like, part of the coolness and the respect of it is that you put in the work. It just bums me out seeing like a lot of brands doing it for the cloud almost. Like, what are you adding to the industry? I don't know. And yeah, to me, it's like if the pieces fall in place and I can eventually take this full time, it's going to be because the community feels like we're doing enough. You know what I mean? We have that much demand locally or regionally. Like, I don't mind, like, I don't want it to be like, oh, I want you to only support snowboard brands in your state or like your country. That craftsmanship is something I respect a lot and I wish we wanted to preserve more. Like, the biggest comparison to me is that I think about is how in surfing, there's so many shapers all over the coasts that small, but big enough to where they can almost live off of, well, maybe not live off of it, but they're big enough to where they get some income from making surfboards and they have demand. Snowboarding is a little trickier and it's strange because snowboarding evolved from surfing, but there's not that same handmade, like grassroots respect that there is in surfing almost. People in surfing will pay like $1,500 for a dope log. In snowboarding, like it's a lot of money. Like that's like 3 boards from like a mass manufacturer. It's hard for me to emphasize the things I want to emphasize because I get being broke. Like I get not wanting to spend a bunch of money on your gear. But at the same time, it's like at what point do you owe it to yourself and like your love of the sport to do that?
Yeah.
I don't
Or it could be also perhaps like surfing has that kind of already ingrained in the culture that people have been shaping their own boards for a long time, and this is kind of relatively new with snowboarding that people are starting to. Well, it's not relatively new, but it's becoming more known and more popular. Snowboarders making their own snowboards.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I agree. To be honest with you though, like I think making a surfboard is harder than making a snowboard. Um, yeah, anyway, I'm not gonna just keep repeating myself, but you get what I'm saying.
I do. Yeah, they're able to support themselves, but it seems it's more difficult for snowboarding to do the same.
Yeah, no, for sure.
For your boards, what kind of composites and like what kind of wood are you running with it? Because I see you're making park boards, which take a beating. Are you running thicker edges, thicker base material, or standard?
So yeah, actually I am running the thinner edges, the blue ones. For cores, I'm running normally I like doing 100% poplar. I was experimenting with poplar with Polonia strips, stringers. Poplar with right now I'm using poplar with birch stringers. My favorite has been the poplar, 100% poplar, just because I really like how flexible and jibby it is. I think when I was using the Polonia stringers, I had 2 boards explode, which was not good because it ended up being that the Polonia was just too weak next to the bindings. Like when people landed backseat or just really heavy, the binding would next to the binding would just snap. So after that, I stopped messing with Polonia. I thought it was so cool because of how light the boards felt. They were like as light as like some new Burtons, and I was like, dang, I'm doing some good stuff. I'm matching up the weights. Like I really got this whole thing going, and then my buddy breaks the board like a month and a half in, just doing like a cab 5, I think he was trying, and he landed back seat, and then it broke, and I was like, dude, all right, so we're not doing the whole light board gimmick anymore because that's not gonna last. And then yeah, in terms of fiberglass, both triaxial and biaxial glass, depending on what the person wants. I'm actually not using any carbon fiber because I don't think it's needed, at least for the boards I'm making. I think it does affect the performance of a board, and I think it would be nice for like all mountain boards and stuff like that. But for rails specifically, I think this is just my like current like opinion. Like I think you want to make a solid board that can survive a beating, but it's also not breaking the bank. And carbon fiber is just not compatible with not breaking the bank.
Definitely, yeah, it adds a cost to it. Guessing from like that composite, how you make the boards with the composite, kind of like a damp, buttery, kind of folds over the rail type of board.
Yeah, that's kind of my style. It's gonna flex a little under the rail. It's also like it lets you plant a foot on a rail and then you can just like if you hold your core and you're just pulling your board, you can swivel so easily. There's negatives to having that flexible of a board. It's not as flexible as you'd think, but it's still pretty flexible. I'd rate it like a 5 or 6, right in between there. But for a lot of people, they say it's too soft for them, and I'm like, oh, I can make it stiffer. That's not a problem. This is my preference, and that was the biggest thing that I kind of was thinking about when I was making boards was I'm not going to be trying to make boards that I can't ride and determine if they ride well. Like I'm not the a crazy all mountain guy, like doing crazy drops, you know, hucking doubles, sevens, like nines. Like I'm not out there doing that. I'm more of like a rail jib guy. And I love to keep working on myself and get to that point, but until I can, like I'm not gonna be designing boards with a blind cloth on. Like it's just not my speed.
Yeah, makes sense. That's why you got into it. You want to make the boards, and you're making them.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm guessing you guys have a CNC machine and all that.
Yeah, so we have a big Freedom Machine Tools CNC machine. It's literally the powerhouse of the operation. Like that thing is a beast. It's probably worth more than anything else. Yeah, it is worth more than everything else in the shop combined, actually.
Believe it.
Yeah, like yeah.
I went down the road of researching them, and some of them were like the price tags. I'm like, whoa, did not think they'd get that much.
Yeah, it's it's a lot. There are some like build it yourself CNC options that I've explored. It really just comes down to how precise you want your cuts to be and shapes to be. For wood, I find the cores itself doesn't need to be the most precise sidewalls and stuff since it's getting filled with urethane anyway. But when you're doing bases and stuff, it really sucks if you have edges like jagged curves and stuff in your base because when you finish the board, it's kind of hard to hide those sometimes. When you put the edge on, you have those weird jagged lines, and it's like not you have a jagged cut, and so it's hard to say. I think if I was starting out again, I would try like without meeting Corey and Chris, I would try to make a CNC, but it's hard to justify because you want to make snowboards, you don't want to be making machines too.
So you guys are using that to profile too?
Yeah, so we have a planer for just like flat tapering and planing, and then we take it to the big CNC once it's done, and we taper out the whole little bell curve of the snowboard shape. Yeah, it does it pretty quick. It's kind of scary too. That thing is scary to use, but that's probably how it's gonna feel for the rest of my life. It's just once you break a bunch of bits, like I'm sure you get desensitized to it, but I'm still in the stage where breaking bits hurts my wallet and hurts my ego.
Understandable. I had one fly by my head once.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's crazy.
I was done for the day after that.
Safety glasses are on after that.
Well, they were on beginning with, but
Okay, good.
it was full RPM and it went right by.
Yeah. Yeah, I can believe it, dude. When we cut our cassettes out of the aluminum, we have to change the speed and stuff, the cutting feed rate and stuff. And dude, I broke like 2 bits when I was making my first cassette and ruined a piece of aluminum as well. And it was just it was such a I was like, oh my God, aluminum is so hard to like so hard to machine. But it was just I just didn't know like how to do it and stuff and
How do you have to cut it low and slow?
low and slow. Yeah. And I was just kind of like, well, if it's fast enough, it should be good. And that's when stuff starts to weld and stuff. You have your filings welding back. You have your filings welding to the bit and the stock as well at the same time. And then it's just a mess. You can tell it was a mess. I fixed it all now, but it was a mess. But it's stuff like that. Like it's like I never thought I'd be machining aluminum to make snowboards and stuff like that. Like you have to learn so many skills outside of the actual layup process that it's tough.
Yeah, is that kind of one thing that surprised you was like how many different things you have to learn, like CNC, woodworking, CAD, and machinery, and all everything that it takes to make one board?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I had a little bit of CAD experience from some projects and stuff in high school, but it was nothing like what I needed, like nothing what I ended up using to make snowboards. And like I really don't want to make it seem intimidating though either. I really think there's beauty in ignorance. Something's got to get you to make that initial push and spend that initial amount of money where at that point you're like, oh man, it's a sunk cost. I just got to keep putting money and learn this. You can make boards you don't need a CNC. You can also do a handheld jig with rails and like a handheld router, but I've seen a lot of people on Instagram have success with that, and I think that's dope. More power to you. And you can airbag it, pneumatic style press. Yeah, like vacuum pump style. We have my bad, I was using the wrong word, but we have a pneumatic press with airbags and like fire hose. And I think that's actually like the end goal. Like you can get the most consistent for the lowest amount of money with that kind of style press. But I see a lot of people having a lot of success with the vacuum pump and it makes me think about, trying it too for maybe smaller boards, stuff that might not fit in the press. Still haven't done it yet. The other thing is that we've been thinking a lot is that you can do sublimation like that too with a vacuum pump. It's just a matter of kind of figuring out how consistent you're going to get at it and if it's worth it. It's way nicer with heat and a pneumatic airbag, but it's possible. It's definitely cheaper.
There's a lot of different ways people can make a board or a ski.
Yeah.
That's kind of what's cool. Like you saying on Instagram, you see other people try one way, then you see someone else trying a different way and having success at it. It is pretty entertaining to go through all these craftsmen pretty much and seeing what their methods are. This is why I kind of started the podcast to get the thoughts behind people and how they make stuff.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I appreciate you for starting the podcast because I think this is like all of us like are super hyped on the process and it's like about time somebody decided to like try to share it and get a bunch of like insider like previews and stuff because it's gonna help a lot. You're not gonna have to do as much like doom scrolling on ski builders to try to figure out everything.
Yeah, clicking
um
page.
yeah. I remember when one thing that blew my mind when I was learning was we were pressing our own cores and the way you make a core is you basically just get a bunch of laminate, like a bunch of strips of wood, and you press them. You cut it, you rotate it 90 degrees and you cut it on the side so you have all the laminates kind of like horizontally set up. When I learned that, I was like, that's really cool. Like, that makes sense. That's a really like strong structure. It makes sense how like it can handle forces and you can like jib. And then I learned that the big dogs, the snowboard design world, they take it a step further and they actually those are horizontal strips of wood. They actually do vertical strips of wood, sorry. Those are vertical long strips of wood that span the whole length of the board. They do horizontal strips under the bindings to increase your feel. And when I learned that, I was like, what? Like, that's crazy. Like, how are they even building these cores and even like pressing them like that? And I do think it's really cool, like learning all these little things because it shows you that the ceiling keeps growing, and you can always, if you spend enough time, you can find a cheaper way to do that, and maybe an affordable way where you could actually do it like for your boards. And I don't know, I'm just stoked on that. I just always think about the dopest stuff like that, and I'm like, man, I can't wait till, eventually I have enough money or I have the space, the working space to do it. But I think a lot of the builders are like that too. And I just think it's dope that now everyone can share what they know, and we can keep the stoke going.
Definitely. For like a future project, you want to work on something like making different type of cores. Is there any other future projects you're looking ahead at?
Yeah, I have a couple. One of the first things I did when I was cutting out board tails was I drew a flame, the shape of flames, and I cut that out of the tail of a board. And I thought I was so cool. And I was like, man, this is stick. And then I took it to Big Snow. The first rail, I tried a front tail same way and came up just the tiniest bit short, and the tail instantly snapped. And I was like, you know, this is where I got to start learning how to make snowboards. And that's kind of where I wanted to start learning reinforcement. So I kind of want to bring that back and other like ludicrous tail shapes, but we're gonna see. It's hard making stuff knowing that it might just snap, and you might you might be sad after that. But
The only way to find out is to make them.
yeah, someone's got to invest the money, and nobody else is gonna put it up. So I guess I got to answer the call.
Yeah. Sounds like a pretty fun project there, like just making like custom tail shapes and wild designs.
Yeah, yeah. I really think like that kind of side would also like I'm really inspired by a lot of people on Instagram like that design crazy surfboards, like crazy fins, crazy rails on their surfboards. And I just want to kind of bring that to snowboarding. Eventually I'd love to try to start make the like powder, like the, what's the word for it? The ones you don't need bindings for.
Pow surfers.
Yeah, the pow surfers, but with actual rails in them. Like there's these guys in Japan that make pow surfs completely from wood, and there's rails on the bottom of their boards, and they ride them in the snow, and I'm like, that's so cool because at that point you don't need a press anymore. Like they're carving it all, which sounds more painful, but the end product is beautiful, and it's like, I don't know. I'm stoked on that. I kind of have this idea to bring back. Rossignol had a mini snowboard back in the day that was the same effective edge almost, just way shorter, like pretty close to the same effective edge as a normal board, but then just way shorter. It's like a 128 centimeter. I really want to bring that gimmick back, I think. It's tough justifying it because I make my cores to be 180 centimeters. So I'd be wasting like 50 centimeters of wood. But it would be so cool to like start stacking on a mini board and kind of bring back that. I don't know if it should be brought back, but but I kind of want to.
Yeah, you make boards so you do stuff like this.
Yeah, prototype anything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's all the questions there. I got kind of some rapid fire ones just to end the interview with.
Oh yeah.
All right. So, what's your favorite board you've made so far?
So I have a board that I call the Twizzy. It's a 152 twin, and the shape was inspired by the Wizard Stick, the Dinosaurs Will Die Wizard Stick, and the Capita Kazu Kokobo Pro model. And that board is my favorite. Like people get scared to ride it because it's got twin points on it. It comes to a point, so people are like, what if I like run into something or run into someone? Oh, you can snowboard. You're not going to do that. Yeah, I just love the Wizard Stick. That Dinosaurs Will Die is a brand that's been doing it right, like since the beginning. Like, and they hit it out of the ballpark with the Wizard Stick. I just have to shout them out here.
No, it's a sick board. If you could ride any place in the world, where would you ride?
Ooh, like make it my local or go visit?
Go visit or make a little where you want to go.
Yeah, I really want to check out more tow ropes, but dream place would have to be Locks. Switzerland just seems crazy. I've never snowboarded there. I think that would be so cool. But I really like the aspect, like I like smaller resorts and smaller like scenes a lot more than like I was saying, like all mountain. But that would just be next level. Like that would just be next level. And their park there is just unbelievable. So that'd probably be it for me. Maybe New Zealand too. They have a really crazy park there. Yeah, probably those two. If I had to move somewhere though, it might be like it'd have to be a scene, Denver's Ruby Hill scene. Because that's kind of like my whole vibe now is Denver has this little spot, Ruby Hill Rail Yard, which is a hike park. We still have a cat. We still put in a bunch of dope features and we still blow snow, but it's all volunteer based. So nobody's making money. It's free for everyone. And I think that's kind of what I'm trying to get more at. I know Ski Bowl is kind of like that too. So that'd be really cool. I've never been there either, but that's kind of more my vibe. So that's
low key, jibby.
yeah.
No, it's a good vibe. What kind of advice would you give to people that are listening that haven't built a board but want to get into building? What kind of advice would you have to get them going?
I would say start with start with a board you like, copy the shape, and then think about what you want to change in that board. For me, the Wizard Stick was a little bit, like it sounds weird, but I have like a weirdly short legs, like my hips only go so high. I think the 154 was a little too long for me, and that's why I changed it to a 152. Then I also changed some stuff like the waist width and then the tip and tail as well. And at that point, it's like, start with something you like and then build off of that instead of, don't just go in the dark and start trying to hit a piñata, even though that's kind of what you do, I guess. But yeah, that's what I would say. And then I would say reach out to, there's a Facebook group, Snowboard Builders, post on there, reach out to local shapers. I'm sure they would show you the process. Maybe not all of them, but some of them will. And you'll find the good eggs eventually. You just have to keep working at it.
Yeah, good advice right there. Kind of start with what you like, then you don't have to worry about designing a board. You just take what you know, then work on actually making it.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, because once you can imitate, it's kind of at that point that you can start coming up with your own stuff because you know it works.
Yeah, completely. All right, this has been fun. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate you.
No problem. Have a good one.
Thank you. Peace out, Josh.
Big thanks to Alex for coming on to the show and sharing how he started Crash Snowboards and his passion for grassroots snowboarding. Until next time, thanks, Snow.